Thanks for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, I appreciate it. Hey everyone, it's Daniel from Dan Has Fun here today, and for this video we're going to throw Tier Maker up on screen, as you can see there, and we're going to talk about Reboot Camp, Advance Wars 1 and 2, and the Commanding Officer soundtrack, or more importantly, their main theme. So this was a tier maker made by Willie Carter 75. I appreciate you doing it, so I didn't have to. And we're going to go through each CO, and this is an opinion-based video, so if you disagree with things that I'm saying, good. If everyone had the same thoughts, it'd be a really boring world, right? But these are just my own thoughts. And like I said, I am going to concentrate on the main theme, so when you load up a game, the sound you get if you just did nothing once you're in the battle screen with the commanding officer. So in terms of kind of rough criteria, my mind is going to be about, does it suit the character's personality? Advance Wars COs don't have particularly in-depth personalities, but they do have distinctive ones anyway. Does it sound better than its previous versions? Because obviously for Advance Wars 1 and 2, they're on the Game Boy Advance. A lot of them got renovated their versions on the Nintendo DS with Dual Strike, although honestly a lot of them are significantly worse. But yeah, does the new version sound better than what they had before? Just my general feeling when listening. So for me, that's usually how catchy is it, is a real big component of it. But then also, how happy would I be, having to listen to this over and over? Because Advance Wars turns, they can take, depending on if it's a big map, it can take minutes. So if you have a theme that is grating, it's gonna just make it miserable. You'll probably turn the music off. At least there's an option for that. But let's go through them. We're gonna go through them in kind of color order, I guess. So I'll go by faction. So we're gonna start off with Orange Star. We'll have to adjust as we go which CO we pick up because they're not in order based on how I want to do it, but we'll play the cards we're dealt. So Andy, so he kept most of the almost grungy working sounds in the bass and the theme, both of which I was actually concerned they would remove. Very glad that they did not do that. He probably gained some accidental bias points though, purely because during the campaign it's going to be one of the most frequently heard songs, so you've got a great opportunity to kind of feel if it's going to be catchy. In reality though, it is an energizing bop, and I find myself humming occasionally to it without even having the game on. So really, for me, it's got to be an A. Now, in terms of really how these break down, an S is going to be, 10 out of 10. I would listen to that again. A, and I'm actually going to change this as we go. I think this is kind of the A to B tier, where I like it. It's all right. We're then going to have kind of our C to D tier, which I would describe as kind of mid. As in, there's a phrase that one of my kids says constantly. It's okay. I don't actively hate it. Maybe we'll just leave it as a C then. Yeah, but it's just kind of okay. Then we're going to have, D to E. You had 2 decades. Wow, that typing is something special, isn't it? Yeah, so you had 2 decades because Advance Wars 2 came out in 2003 on the Game Boy Advance to nail these sounds and tunes, and you haven't quite got there. And then F is just, what even is this? What am I listening to? Why did you let this happen? There certainly will be a song or two in there. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm going to break this down. So yeah, Andy, he's going to get an A. I think it's actually a really good tune. Max, in a possible kind of hot take, it's the first theme that I think is worse than the Game Boy Advance version. So a lot of Max's music appeal to me was that it was kind of raw and angry sounding to match his balls to the wall personality. And I don't find that the Reboot really catches that energy in the same way. It sounds more sassy than angry to me. It isn't bad, it's still catchy, but no, it doesn't really really hit the mark for me. So for me, that is a pretty average tune. It's catchy. I would still listen to it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to go and listen to it. I'd probably go on YouTube and find the Game Boy Advance versions. Sorry, Max. It's still okay, though. So, Sammy, is it just me that hears, like, bits of Disco Kid from Punch-Out Wii in this song? It's an absolute belter. It's high energy. It still conveys the feeling of, having a commanding officer that's kind of fiery and one that prioritizes breakneck movement, probably as her infantry break your neck, frankly. I am relieved they didn't change the theme too much fundamentally, because this is a theme that didn't need changing. Like I said, I'm not really grading the menu themes in this video, but her menu version of this song is also really good. It does do it for me. So when you're in the screen where you're thinking about what unit to buy, there's a different version in Reboot Camp, and it's also very good. Yeah, S for me. I think it's a fantastic theme. Is it the best theme in the game, though? In my opinion, only time will tell. Nell. Classroom Bell. Putting that in is... it just works, given her role as effectively being a teacher to most of Orange Star's commanding officers. Beyond that, though, this theme hasn't changed very much at all, and I'm okay with that because it was pretty solid to begin with. Really, the only main shame about this song is nothing about the song. It's more that because she always shows up so early in campaigns, you really don't hear it in story mode at all, beyond the very, very start. But I still do enjoy this theme. It's going to be in the same tier as Andy. I think this would be more of a B than an A. But yeah, I still think it's pretty good, in all honesty. Patchy, who is last in our list here. So his theme has to function as the shop theme as well, which makes it a little trickier to judge as it has to serve multiple functions. It's relaxing, which suits, war-retired Hatchy, and the fact that playing as him usually means you're playing on relaxation mode because he's crazy broken. But it definitely doesn't suit Battleground. If I was watching original series very SpongeBob SquarePants, I'd expect to hear a theme like this when the narrator talks about Bikini Bottom. But for a turn-based strategy game, it just doesn't do it for me. I don't want to feel like I should take a nap instead of planned strategy, or maybe have, just a lay back with a pina colada would be something more up my alley. Doesn't work for me in this game's context, though. It's no worse than his previous music, at least, so it's not, F tier, absolute awful. But it's a character that, in my mind, this is somebody that really needed a musical overhaul. And I'm really surprised they didn't do that, given how often you're going to hear it outside of the main game in the shop. Yeah, I'm really confused by this one. You had 2 decades to get this song really remastered, renovated, revitalized, and it just didn't happen. I'm not ranking character accents and voice acting on this video either, but oh boy, that's not good either. Oh well. So he's, going into the you had 2 decades tier. So let's now move to Blue Moon. We only have 3 commanding officers for the next 3 main factions, so we'll be able to get through them a little bit quicker. And we'll start with Olaf. So, first thing I thought when I listened to this is, where on earth did his really prominent sleigh bells go? They are still in there, but you can barely tell. Having said that, you can tell me that they're really pronounced in his menu version, but they only, gently kiss his main theme. In my mind, that's an absolutely awful decision. There's also now a choir seemingly making, groaning sounds in the background. It's an interesting addition. I like it, but on the Game Boy Advance, his theme made you feel like, hey, this guy's going to march through the snow and end your entire career. Now it just sounds kind of generic. I'll say that at least they got rid of the horns or the trumpets, whatever sound they are, from Dual Strike. I don't know why on earth in Dual Strike they turned Olaf's brass band noises from trumpets into, flatulent noises. Really, really strange. We're not that bad, but I still think it's a pretty average theme. So he is getting the C in the mid-tier. Grit. So, is there some sort of rule where Blue Moon COs have to have their main background sound effect reduced or removed? So, where did his finger snaps go? Into his menu, as it happens, his menu music. And why did Grit end up receiving, some of the flatulent instruments that I mentioned Olaf had on the DS? It's only very brief in his theme, thank goodness. But yeah, I don't know what on earth makes them think that is what we want to hear. I don't know. The frustrating part is that every other component of Grit's theme I really like. It's the laid-back kind of lone wolf sniper to a T. It's one of the most unique tracks the IP has to offer. But I was expecting the music on the remaster to be like top-grade S material, but I mean, it's still good. It's probably still in as a B by the skin of its teeth. But it feels like a really missed opportunity. And again, we're not judging the menu music, but dear lord, his menu music is a shocker. Like, it is horrendous. Yeah, I don't get the music direction in this game sometimes. Colin. So, our boy Colin gives me some Delfino Plaza vibes, actually, with the kind of the accordion or the harmonica getting an outing. I'm sure it's one of those, but, I'm no music expert, so I'm not sure which one it is. The Reboot version definitely has that feeling of kind of having more of a budget thrown at it, which I get, it fits the bill, given we're talking about Colin and he's all about money. This version also feels softer than versions from the past, which initially I wasn't so sure about, but it makes sense given, Colin's shy personality, so I think it really is probably a good change. I've never loved this theme, but I do think it's a pretty good version of it. I still think it's probably not A tier, it would be a B tier. Do I like it more than Grids? I'll have to think about it. But yeah, I would still say it's a solid theme. It's very military oriented. It fits. That's really the most, the biggest selling feature for it. So, all kind of average or above average for Blue Moon. Let's take a look at a faction that definitely does not have average music. Gold Comet. It'll take me a long time to get used to that. So, leader of Gold Comet, Kanbei, or Kanbai, I guess. Not spelled that way, but that's how it's pronounced. So this track absolutely gets nailed in Reboot Camp, which makes me sad in a way, because why couldn't we have this much effort put into every theme? The vocal sound effects do infinitely more work than they do in Olaf's theme. Every instrument seems to fit together in a nice harmonious fashion. They've managed to get Kanbai's theme feeling even more energetic sounding than before, and even his menu music is fantastic. Again, not judging it based on that, but every part of his music, I think, has been absolutely nailed. It's absolutely an S. And if it wasn't for the fact that I like it so much, I'd have it as my morning alarm music. I can't, because my concern would be that I'd just listen to it and not get out of bed. This is definitely an S tier song. It's awesome. Sonia, or Sonia, as they say. Ugh, I don't like that pronunciation, but what are you going to do? So this isn't Reboot Camp specific, but her theme has always conflicted slightly with her personality in my eyes. So the music's very classical. I mean, that's dialed to 11 in Reboot Camp and dainty sounding, whereas Sonia's highly analytical, and especially in Advance Wars 1 in the campaign, she comes off as just plain cold. I guess another way to look at it is, if you're choosing the Viennese waltz to base your music on, you're likely very educated and cultured. Or at least, you think you are. I do think this is a significant improvement over previous versions, but that's more because I think the Game Boy Advance and DS versions were really dull. Would I want to listen to this on repeat for a while? Honestly, no. For me, this is like the epitome of average. This is a C. It's okay, but I do think we should have found ways to get maybe some techie scientific sounds into the theme, just to give it that really bold contrast to the classical sounds. Because she's not an old traditional mine, she's set up to be a forward thinker, so why are we going back in time with her music selection? Doesn't really fit for me. And speaking of old and traditional, we now need to talk about Sensei. So, this is another commanding officer with some stellar music. It doesn't quite have the same energizing peaks that Kanbai's music has, but boy oh boy did they throw a surprise putting samba music in there with jazz instruments, and I'm absolutely all for it. If I was grading based on how catchy the music is alone, this would be absolutely star on top of the tree. It's quirky, it's out there, it's a gem that fits our, slightly senile senior with the scariest copters around. It's an S. I don't think it's as good as Kanbei's. Is it better than... Oh, that's close. I don't think so. I think it is in the top tier. I think it's the weakest of the three, but that's no slant. Like, all of these are really, really good. So, 2 out of 3 songs for Gold Comet, I absolutely love. Now we get to move to Green Earth. And let's start with Eagle, King of the Skies. So if you like guitars, then you're going to like this version of Eagle's theme, because this theme is all guitar all the time. It definitely has a lot of energy, but I don't like this rendition at all. It feels like one of the most one-dimensional songs the soundtrack has to offer, and that sound effect they put in at the start of the theme to kind of beat the tempo out, it sounds awful. I absolutely hate it. I don't think it's a complete failure, as the stubbornness of trying to use one instrument to do 99% of the musical work does fit Eagle's unyielding personality, so at least there's that. But this is on the threshold of me looking to turn the music off if I was looking to play a long game with him. Like, this is definitely, for me, this would be E grade. Like, you had 20 years and all you did was use one instrument and one main sound effect. Like, what were you thinking? I don't get it. Let's move over to Drake. Surely his is better. The biggest positive that I can give about Drake's music is that whoever decided to make the steel drums have their own main part of the theme, congratulations, that was a great decision. With Drake being an ex-pirate and having an instrument that makes you think of the Caribbean, it's a really smart move, especially because Drake's fairly laid back, so it works on multiple levels. The real problem I have with this theme, though, it doesn't sound nautical at all. So Drake is meant to be this naval master, albeit he has as a commanding officer, he's very lacking, but we're not judging that. But parts of his song give me like Mario Galaxy vibes, and even some parts almost get into like Western territory. So really, I guess the problem is that this is a song that's having an identity crisis. It's not as bad as Eagles. I would say that it's slightly more appropriate than Hatchie's, but it's in the same tier with them. Like, I would put that as a D. It's catchy enough to make it better than theirs, and that is why he goes top of that pile. It's a bad pile, but at least he's top of the pile. So surely somebody in Green Earth will have a song that I like, right? Sorry to burst that bubble. No. Well, I should really rephrase that. So for Jess, the first 26 seconds of this theme got me excited the first time I heard it. I actually went back and got the exact time because I was very, very curious how long it took before things went wrong. I liked that it sounded both futuristic and militaristic. I guess the creators thought so too, though, because they then take the futuristic component and dial it, I can't even say to 11, it's to like 30 out of 10. So unfortunately, what this means for the music is that it sounds like a horrendously jumbled mess, and it's awful. It is terrible. The record rubbing sound in particular just becomes grating astonishingly quickly. So much so that I had to turn it off when I first listened to it just to collect my thoughts. I listened to it again just to confirm my thoughts for this video. And I don't want to listen to it a third time. It's an F. This is terrible. Like, The Green Earth CO themes, like, were they the ones just done last, and then we forgot to, to redo them before this was released? It's not as if they didn't have time with how much it got delayed. But what is going on with that theme? It is absolutely awful. Final faction we get to go through, and it's technically the biggest. So we have 6 more commanding officers to go through. Kind of. First one is kind of Andy again. So I will say I'm glad that they put the effort in to make Clone Andy like an actual character with his own music. Or at least I would be saying that if it was good. So Clone Andy, if you took Andy's anthem, Sturm's theme, which, don't worry, we'll get to him later, and the groaning choir from Olaf's theme, and kind of put them in a blender, you get something like this. And I'm sorry, but I absolutely hate this theme as well. Like I said, I can appreciate they made a separate theme for Clone Andy when they definitely didn't need to do that. They did try to make it sound robotic, but I wish they hadn't gone with almost anything with what it sounds like. But the developers did remember that we'd have to listen to these themes a lot, potentially, right? None of these sounds come together. It has got a very, very loose tempo of Andy's anthem, but it really just sounds like they smashed random metallic objects together and then put it in a song. It's awful. I don't think... Oh, is it worse than Jess's? Oh. I don't think it is because it disappointed me less. Jess's theme in the Game Boy Advance version was pretty simple, but it was catchy. Now it's not. So I think it's terrible, but it's not as disappointing as Jess's, so you get to be probably the second worst theme in this game. Let's move to Flack, speaking of terrible things. Now, he's our resident dingus. This theme is menacing like that of Clone Andy, but importantly, it doesn't sound like I'm having my ears assaulted with a cheese grater, so that's good. I do like that the song gets increasingly chaotic sounding as it goes. That's not new to the Reboot Camp version, but I'm glad that we still have that. Because it makes me think, it's like Flack himself is getting more and more wound up and out of control as the turn goes on. Also, if you let... In previous versions, the music when a CO's turn started would always start at the beginning. So if you ended up hearing the end of Flack's music, it usually meant things have gone horribly wrong for you. Reboot Camp doesn't do that. It'll resume the music wherever it was stopped the turn previous, which I wish they hadn't made that decision. You lose that development, but again, I'm not judging that. That's just a design decision issue as opposed to the musical issue. It's a significant improvement over the DS version, I would say, but it probably breaks even with the Game Boy Advance version in my mind. So I can't give it a huge grade. It's going to be average. I think it's probably the least impressive of the ones in the C mid tier right now. Lash. So thank goodness we have a theme comprising of futuristic sound effects that doesn't suck. Jess should take note. The core music hasn't changed very much, but it didn't need to. So of the Black Hole COs, I would say Lash has always had the catchiest bass tune, and they really just did a pretty safe glamour up of the original for Reboot Camp. They took very few risks, but it still sounds great. It's future-oriented. She's the thinker of, or the gadgeteer of Black Hole. It fits. I like this theme. I would say it's an A. Is it better than Andy's? No, I'd say not. Close though. But yeah, finally, after a run of some really poor themes, we get a good one. Next up is Ada. So remember in Dual Strike when, and it's going to depend on where you were born and raised, it'll either be Cole or Zach. I think Cole was the North American and Zach was the European name for a commanding officer in the DS version. He was introduced and he's basically just Ada, but slightly better because he got a bonus attacking on roads. Well, it seems Ada's getting his home back by stealing some of the instruments that they used on his Near Clones theme. It still sounds sinister and malevolent, which is important because that is Ada to a T. Similar to Lash before, They really didn't try reinventing the wheel with Adder's theme, and really that's probably the right decision. It's not as catchy as Lash's theme, though, in my opinion, so it would be a B rather than an A. I also don't think it's quite as good as Colin's theme, so he's in the bottom of B. Hawk. Oh boy. So contrary to Adder, Hawk's theme really does sound like it's lost its edge in Reboot Camp. But in sounding more futuristic, it doesn't have the same darker, sinister, almost mechanical tones that made Hawk feel really intimidating. He was one of the very few COs, in my opinion, to have a really good version on the DS as well. And this new version just doesn't hold a candle to it. It's almost as if the developers thought their Lash theme was so good that they could just put a similar treatment on a Hawk as well. And it just doesn't work. Lash is not intimidating. She's scheming and slightly emotional, and Hawk's not those things. He's very straight-laced and very stoic in many ways, and the music change doesn't fit him. It's not unpleasant to listen to, but it horrendously misses the mark. So for me, this has to be an E. How bad within the E? Is it better than I don't think it's better than Eagles, and he has one instrument. Like, what were they thinking? Oh well. So last but not least, Stern. Definitely not least. So this theme works. We have futuristic and militaristic sounds. They're blended together. It suits the fact that we really have no real origin or main knowledge of our big bad in Advance Wars 1 and 2. Intimidation factor is still present. My only real criticism of this theme, though, the main instruments are clearly having to fight very hard to be the primary sound coming through. And I haven't really spoken about it in this video, but there are a few themes where you do think, would this sound better if the main instruments that they used in the Game Boy Advance were allowed to play out? Almost all of them still have the main instruments, but they have so many engineered background noises and side sounds that sometimes it gets lost. And I feel like this is a song where less probably would have been more. But really, having said that, it's still an A. It's still a great, great song. Great theme. How great would I say it's better than Lash's? It's not as catchy as Lash's, but it does fit the personality. These two are really close. I would say it's very much either or. So it's an A. So in terms of breakdown, we have 3 absolute 10 out of 10s. I mean, Kanbei's is an 11 out of 10. It's a fantastic theme. We have 3 that I would put in for A, 4 for B. I like the order of these. I think they're about right. We got 4 that I would describe as just bang average. 4 where, I mean, we've had so long to have these games remade. I don't know how we should really have all of these be at least C tier, but they're not. And 2 of these songs should just go in the bin. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. But let me know what you think. Always keen for an opinion. Hopefully you'll provide it. I will be watching all the comments. I'll read them all. So I do appreciate it. Give the video the old like if you did enjoy listening to me prattle on. And hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day. And hopefully you'll come back and see some more. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching the video. And if you'd like to see more, feel free to stick around.